Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here and checking out the series. You know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists, and I am so excited, honored to once again have her back on the show, Lucinda Williams. Hello.
Hi.
It's great to see you, and with so much going on, there's a brand new album, Stories from a Rock and Roll Heart. You've got the biography, Don't Tell Anybody the Secrets I Told You. Does it feel like this is all happening it is happening all at once. Does it feel a little bit more elevated than usual?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of press lately, with the 2 different things coming out. So I've been doing a string of Zoom interviews this week with quite a few European ones.
Yeah. Well, it's the convenience of Zoom. I mean, you don't even have to
It
travel for the
really
interviews.
is.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the Zoom thing. So, maybe some people might not, but it's just so convenient. I don't have to get all fixed up that much.
Well, it is great to have you in this virtual space, and with both of these projects, maybe the obvious place to start. First off, I love this record. It's so much fun to listen to. Yeah, the songs are so great.
Wow, thank you.
Does the record come sort of spawned from doing the biography? Because I mean, it feels like a concept album in that way. Does one follow the other in that sense?
That's interesting that you saw it like that. Because it wasn't intentional, but I think it's a good thing to have them kind of connected in that way. But I think it was just a coincidence that if you mean the songs are kind of connected to the.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems very biographical.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way the record sort of looks back at this lifestyle and career choice that you've done.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the thread running through the album to me seems like, it's kind of about surviving and being a warrior, which is what I've been going through. A lot of us have, because of here's what we had going on. I'm trying to remember the order, but it was almost biblical, because we had a tornado come through Nashville and the pandemic, and I had my stroke. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot.
And you got to be a warrior if you're going to come out the other side of that and still produce something like this. But it's interesting. So even if they're not intentionally kind of created in that way, the way that the record does play out, because the way these songs seem to tell more of the story, not just of being a survivor, but of what rock and roll means to you, and the choice of this career path. I don't know. Let me see. Hopefully this isn't too heady of a question, but I'm gonna try this anyway. but
go ahead, try me.
Yeah, but as you look back in the book with these songs, what has it meant to choose this path as the rock and roll? Because this isn't made for everybody. It's not for what do they say, the weak of heart, right?
Yeah. You mean rock and roll as opposed to other styles?
Yeah, I mean, not other styles, but other jobs. I mean, you chose to be a musician.
Yeah.
And this feels like, I mean, do you have that moment to look back and say, this is what it means that I've done this?
Yeah. When you're in it doing it, you're not thinking about it all that consciously necessarily all the time, but when someone asks, like you're asking me right now, you mean, is the question like, was your question directed at do I ever ask myself why I decided to do this? Or
it's not, do you ever ask yourself, but now that we're here, now that you've had this time of reflection, I guess I'm
yeah,
asking specifically, what has it meant to be a musician for your whole life? Because you could have chosen other paths. I mean, do you ever think about, what the sliding door scenario, if it had
yeah,
gone another way?
sometimes, yeah. Um, but I don't know, I've often thought that if if I wasn't able to play music and write songs and do what I do, that I don't know what I would have done, because I didn't have any other training. I mean, I don't have any other skills really. I never learned to type. Like when I was trying to get day jobs, when I first started playing music and stuff, that was hard because I wasn't able to get just any job, other than working in an office, answering the phone or filing or something, because I couldn't type. So, well, typing seems to be something that it comes in pretty handy, when you're looking for certain jobs.
Although
Um,
nowadays everything you can do voice activated too, so that even
yeah, that's
typing
true.
eventually would go the way of like cursive writing. That's gonna.
Yeah, right.
So I guess when I hear, like, it's always the way you mean for a song versus the way your audience or a listener will hear the song, because
Hmm.
that is how I hear this record. I hear this record in the context of, I mean, it's called Stories from a Rock and Roll Hearts. It sort of says it right there.
Yeah,
But then you have tracks like Last Call for the Truth or Jukebox. And to me, that paints the other side. Like, you can be a
right.
career musician, but be prepared. Be prepared for the loneliness.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you're still a regular person doing regular things.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. As I've been singing a lot, doing the shows we've been doing, I've been performing the new songs more. And I told my audience a couple of times, I said, I realized as I was doing more of the new songs, there are a lot of drinking songs on this album, you know. And I told my audience that recently, and I said, well, and then I said, if George Jones can do it, I guess I can too. But yeah, and that was just kind of a coincidence, but I was kind of worried at first. I didn't want people to think I was some kind of a sot, you know,
It's part
hanging
of
out in bars all the time. But I do like bars. I like being in like a good old cool bar. There's nothing like a good bar with a good jukebox, you know,
Yeah, that's home.
and it is. I just feel comfortable in them, I guess,
Yeah. Was
you
the
know.
yeah, the movie Almost Famous, if you remember that one, where Cameron Crowe movie, Kate Hudson says, and whenever you get lonely, you just head to the record store and hang out with all of your friends.
Right,
You know,
exactly. Yeah, it's a similar thing, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
to just grab that jukebox because you can't be with your friends. And I know you know, that's how I connect. I mean, I had a flood, my house flooded years back, and I lost a huge chunk of my music collection. And someone was said,
Wow.
well, that was, you can stream it. And I said, no, I feel like I lost my friend. I feel like my friends actually died
Yeah,
in that flood.
yeah.
You know,
It's not, yeah, streaming is not the same thing. Yeah, 'cause you don't have the physical thing of holding an album.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not quite the same thing. So,
no. So
um,
I get that with the
yeah.
bars and with the jukebox.
Hmm.
And so it's probably, been asked before, but when you look back and thinking about, the artist that might be on your dream jukebox, like, who was the artist that started it for you? What was it, Dylan, or
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah. I would have to say Dylan because, well, I was 12 years old only, in 1965. And, my dad was teaching creative writing, he's published a few books of poetry. And a student of my dad's came over to the house. I was fortunate because I was able to get, acquainted with a lot of the music that my dad's students were listening to that maybe I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. But they would have been like in their 20s and early 30s. So, they would come over to the house to hang out with my dad, and this one guy brought over a copy of Highway 61 Revisited one day. And it had just come out. He came and see, this is what used to happen when a great new album would come out. People would get excited and talk about it. And you would get together with your friends, and it was like a ritual almost. You'd listen to the album with people. Like when a new Beatles album came out, it was this huge deal. And we would all get together at someone's house and just sit and listen to it, and then afterwards talk about it or whatever. It's like a celebration. So this guy came over to the house to visit with my dad, and he walks in the door and he goes, "This is the new Bob Dylan album." It was Highway 61 Revisited, and I'd never even heard Bob Dylan up to that point. And he went in to visit with my dad in another room, and I grabbed the album and put it on the stereo system and listened to it, and my little 12-year-old mind was blown, And I wasn't sure what all the songs were about, but it didn't matter because there was something about the sound that just pulled me in. Not to mention the album cover.
Right.
The photograph of Bob Dylan on that album. I was mesmerized. I was in love. I was bit by the Bob Dylan bug, and from that moment on, that I discovered Joan Baez and Leonard Cohen and all these other folk artists. That was what was going on at that time. And then later, the Doors and, the Stones and Cream and it all just, just took over.
And eventually, I mean, you get to start meeting some of these heroes too, as you become a musician. Did you find then that, like, so if Dylan was the artist that sort of ignited it, did you end up having someone that gave you guidance? Like, did you have that artist?
Well, I had, I don't know if that was anyone in particular, but I spent most of my time in the beginning just listening to record albums, listening to different artists, and I think I just by osmosis or something, learned over time about different things. Reading, there were some great music magazines back then, and just doing a lot of reading and listening. Yeah. I wasn't able to meet any of those people yet until I started performing and getting more well known, And then I was fortunate enough to have been able to go do some shows with Bob Dylan, and this would have been, I guess, in the 80s maybe. Bob Dylan and Van Morrison opened some shows for them, and then later Tom Petty. I learned a lot from Tom Petty. Just watching him, and I was able to get to know him a little bit more. And I still have a hard time talking about him.
Yeah, I've got I can't see it from the camera. I've got autographed Mudcrutch picture right next to it. Like, he was, I mean, those names that you're talking about, Tom and all of them, I mean, they created the greatest music of all time.
Yeah.
And to be able to learn at their feet, I mean, I can't even imagine.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think there's something about Tom Petty and his music, not just his music, but him, that I really connected with and related to. And we're both from the South, and it was weird. I was working on a song one day, and I realized I was writing a song that Tom Petty had already written, you know.
Which one was it?
That happens sometimes. I think it was one of his songs about going down south, and I don't know, it might have been Gainesville maybe, or it was something, it was the melody from that song, I think.
Yeah. It's got to be a tricky thing
And
for a
then
songwriter when you know
it
so much
is.
music, you know.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes it just kind of leaks it through, you know, without you realizing it.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it usually just comes out, for me, it usually is just more of an influence or inspiration. But every so often I'll think of a melody, or I think it's my melody, and then I realize, oh no, I can't use this. This is, you know, whoever's melody, you know. But
although I would think with Tom, I mean, because we know Tom was also a big fan of your songwriting, from covering Change the Locks on the She's the One soundtrack. And like I feel like you could get away with, you know, kind of borrowing some of that, you know, melody.
yeah,
I think that's fine.
yeah, as long as it's not exactly the same.
Sure. Sure. But I don't think he would have been mad at you anyway. It's
No, he wouldn't have been mad. He would have just sued my ass, probably. No, Tom was just so sweet. He's just such a down to earth, you know, like this is an example of the kind of person he was. When I first went out to open shows for him, you know, it seems to me like he never forgot where he came from and what he came from and what it was like before he was famous, you know. And you know, each night I would go out on stage, and his audience was, they were great. They were pretty receptive for the most part. But sometimes some of the ones on the front row would kind of be, you know, they'd be the vibe was generally like, where's Tom? You know, we don't know who this girl is. We want to see Tom Petty. And I think somebody even threw a banana peel on stage one night or something. And I mean, his fans were just insanely fanatic about Tom Petty. And, you know, some of them were dressing like he did with the, you know, the top hat and the cool jackets and stuff. They show up at the concerts looking like Tom Petty almost, you know. And then so one night, he picked up on what was going on, you know, that some of his fans weren't paying enough attention to me and they were talking too much or whatever, you know. And he came one night, I went out on stage to get ready to start my set. And Tom walked out, he followed me on stage, went up to the microphone and said, "Hey people, I want you to pay attention to this next artist because she's real good. And y'all pay attention and everything." And you know, his fans are out there like, "Oh my God, Tom Petty's on stage introducing this artist." And then Tom walked backstage again, and you know, that's what he did. He did that for me.
Yeah, a beautiful endorsement, right? Yeah.
You know, but that's the kind of person he was. You know, it makes me want to cry almost. Yeah. You know, and then my band and I opened up for him at his very last show at the Hollywood Bowl in LA. And I have a great photograph that somebody took of Tom and me backstage with our arms around each other, he's smiling, and yeah, that photograph is a treasure to me.
You know, and as was the music. I have no doubt, as I'm sitting here thinking about it and thinking about the guest list that's also on this album of yours, that if you would have been around, Tom would have probably been on this record as well.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. What was the you know, as we talk about those artists, because you do have a lot of guests on here.
Yeah.
Is that just something that came naturally, that you said this is going to be a guest record?
Well, I didn't say that ahead of time, but I've always enjoyed having guest artists come in and do stuff on my records. You know, I just think it adds more color to it. I think it makes it more interesting. I've just always enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. But
And you know, of course, a lot of times it has to do with the logistics of whether somebody's actually in that town who we're recording, or you know, getting them there, getting in touch with them, and if they're available and all that. But you know, and I've been a guest on so many other artist albums, so I like to kind of repay the favor, you know. And Angel Olsen was really good on this. You know, she came and did some background vocals, and just
she's incredible.
It was real spontaneous. You know, I didn't tell her what to sing or anything, and you know, she just ad-libbed and just did her thing, and it was real subtle. You know, but it really helps the song, and it's at the very, very end of the song. She does this kind of just humming thing, but it's great. It's just beautiful. It just really just nails it, and just, to me, just really captures the essence of the song, you know.
Yeah, Angel and
So,
and Margot. I mean,
Margot is great.
Yeah.
She and Margot and her husband both came in, and yeah.
I love what they do. And of course, there's Bruce. And we cannot pass up, because Bruce makes a few cameos here. So, you know, as we talk about Tom and we talk about Bob, what's your Bruce story? Where does he come into the equation of your rock and roll life?
So my husband, Tom, was always a big Bruce Springsteen fan. We started working on songs together, actually. And this other friend of ours, Jesse Mallon.
I know Jesse.
He's based in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, the mayor of St. Mark's. That's
Yes, yes. You know, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Jesse got a hold of Bruce. He's the one, which is no surprise if you know Jesse Mallon.
Right.
You know, because he knows everybody, you know. But that's funny you said the mayor of St. Mark's Place, because that's what I've been telling people when I do interviews. I've been talking about the co-writing thing with the songs, and they all want to know how I got a hold of Bruce Springsteen. And I'll tell them all, Jesse Mallon, and he's the unofficial mayor of the Lower East Side.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
But anyway, we were just kind of all fantasizing about, you know, our dream guest artist on the album, and Tom Overby mentioned Bruce on a couple of these songs, and Jesse said, well, I can probably get a hold of him. I can get a hold of his people, you know, and lo and behold, he did. And Bruce said yes. And his wife Patty, Bruce and Patty both. And they weren't able to get in the studio with us at the same time, but we sent them the tracks, and they went into their studio where they live in New Jersey, and did these vocals, and they're great. I mean, every time, I'm still excited about it. Every time I hear the song when Bruce's voice comes out, I'm just like a little fanatical kid. I'm just, oh my God, listen to he's so sweet too.
Yeah.
You know,
you sound great together.
Thing.
Yeah.
I know, we sound great together. That my brain is already tick, tick, tick. I'm thinking future projects, you know. Who knows? But anyway, and when you hear him singing on this song, I really feel like he got into the songs. Like he's singing what he does on New York Comeback. It sounds like a song for him, kind of. You know.
Yeah, I could have you all do quite a bit more. I mean, as a fan, I would love to hear more of this friendship blossom. That's what I need.
Yeah.
The song Rock and Roll Hearts, when I heard it, and especially when I started thinking of Jesse and New York, and the
Mhm.
Ramones, because I heard the Ramones in that track right there. And it didn't help that you actually
Really?
say the word
Shoot.
outsider, because they have, a song called Outsider, and you just use that one
I
word.
oh God.
Yeah. But was that not part of it?
Yeah.
Because I started thinking, like, is this a little send up to the Ramones? Because I love this. I don't mean it
No,
sounds like you ripped the
but
Ramones,
that's
by the way.
really
I just feel like a tribute kind of
I'm
thing,
glad to know that. No, I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know that about their song, but what is it, The Outsiders?
Well, they have a song called
They-
Outsider. It's not that you
Oh,
quoted it; you just
outside.
used the word outsider, and I thought, oh, there's even
Yes.
a little bit more. It just kind of leans. And now, what I
Well,
think is you all are drawing from the same well, is what it is.
yes, we're drawing from the same well, and we also had, well, it's kind of funny. We had just been in Austin, Texas, and Travis Stevens, who's a friend and our tour manager, he had met and become friends with C. Thomas Howell,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
who was one of the actors in the movie The Outsiders.
Right.
So we invited him out and we had dinner with him and everything. So now we're all about, I've got to see the movie because I still haven't seen it, and read the book. And I did that. So now we're all about The Outsiders. It's on everybody's minds because we've met this actor and we've seen the movie, and which is of course great and riveting, really, and so that song started forming,
I,
and
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah. That's been in
and
my world, because he was just here. Because he's been touring, C. Thomas Howe, and he was just here in town as well. And I had Rob Lowe on the series not long ago, who was also in the movie. So that's
wow,
you talking
yeah,
about this song, and it's like, man, The Outsider has been in my world already this year. That's
right,
crazy.
yeah, it is,
Yeah.
and it's a great concept for a song. It's a great idea
Yeah.
because it hasn't died really, since the formation of the story and the movie and all of that, is still relevant
Absolutely.
today, so
Yeah. And I think those moments I also enjoy on this record, like This Is Not My City. Speaking of
yeah.
poignant moments,
Mhm.
I'll just go more directly on this one. What are you singing about in that song?
Sorry, it doesn't come across. I feel like I failed.
Not at all. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's
Yeah,
all.
I know, I get it. I'm sorry. Well, it's just that again, and it's sort of that feeling of being an outsider in a way, and there's so many you can interpret it different ways, but um that's one that was a collaborative effort between Tom and Jesse and me. So I think initially Tom Overby came up with the idea of it, and we were talking about the political arena. There's that, and just feeling like it's constant uphill battle, that we've been fighting against, and um it's not really about you necessarily don't like the town you're in, but it's just more about, you know, I can't relate, to what's going on.
Mhm.
And or, this person is out there representing the entire country and he's not representing me though, you know.
Yeah. As I say, living in Kentucky and Tennessee, like I get
Yeah,
exactly what you're getting at right there.
yes,
Yeah. We
yeah,
do deal with this. Um,
right.
yeah.
So you feel like you're not being represented or you're being misrepresented again, the outsider thing,
Hmm.
you know, that kind of connects with that too.
Yeah. I love the levels that sort of comes back in. I mean, just from the political side, from even just, as we talk about rock and roll and how it started, if you were if you were rock and roll, you were an outsider. That was just
Yeah,
part of the game. I mean, that's
yeah.
I mean, stories from a rock and roll heart is stories from being an outsider all of our
Right,
lives.
it's about being misunderstood and misrepresented, and
Yeah.
so, and most kids feel that way in general. Most teenagers feel that way, and we all went through that as teenagers. And music for me was definitely a salvation of sorts, so that's a lot about, that's really the main thread running through the album, I think.
Finding that music
So,
to kind of take salvation in.
yeah. And then there's Let's Get the Band Back Together, which is really about not necessarily getting the band back together, but people you've been out of touch with for a long time. And remember that song that Neil Young wrote about, I'm gonna write a long letter to all my friends,
Right, yeah. Sort of a playoff of that, kind of a similar.
Just again feeling disconnected from people you were close to before, and you haven't seen them in so long, and how life gets in the way, and that's what the song talks about is, we would see each other sometimes at weddings and funerals and that sort of thing.
Well, it's a hell of an album. It really is.
Thanks.
And Stolen Moments, I didn't bring up that's Stolen Moments feels like an instant classic, like right away. Like those songs. Those songs that you're like, I'm gonna be listening to that song 20 years from now and I'm still gonna feel the same way.
Wow.
And
that ended up being an ode to Tom Petty.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was thinking about him a lot after his death, trying to deal with his death, and again, it can be interpreted different ways. I like the songs to be able to be interpreted different ways for people. Yeah. Everybody it can be something different for each person, maybe, because it doesn't have to be about Tom Petty, but it's mainly just about those feelings you get after you lose someone like that. They pass away, and then kind of feel their presence though sometimes, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely great, and
thanks.
It just dawned on me too, and I mean this, but in the coincidence of our conversation, two of my favorite rock songs of all time are Tom Petty's Honeybee and Your Honeybee.
Really? I didn't realize he had one called Honeybee.
That was on the big 94 record with You Wreck Me and yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it was one of his more obscure ones, I guess. Yeah,
it was an obscure track on the record, but it's a great rock song. And there's your homework. Go listen to Tom Petty's Honeybee.
I'm gonna look for it as soon as we get done. I'm gonna go look through that song.
Yeah, it's so good. Lucinda, I always have such a great time talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Too.
And
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'll say the book, Don't Tell Anybody the Secrets I Told You, and this album, Stories from a Rock and Roll Heart. I'm such a fan, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
You made me feel so good about everything. The book, I was going to say, the book got to number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list.
So we just need to pump it up 5 more. Make that sucker number 1. No, but that's awesome. Congratulations. That's right? I mean, you've got a top 10 New York bestseller. That's amazing.
Yay. Uh-oh, what do I do now?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's always part 2. You know what? We're still waiting for Bob Dylan's Chronicles part 2. So, you're
yeah.
I don't think we'll ever get that one either.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, all right.
It takes a long time to write a book.
Yeah, I know that. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll see you around sometime soon.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Take care. You too.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All three of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.